an economist and journalist, writer of La Nación. For me, it's an honor to be here in this event for the next 3 days. We'll have the best agenda on innovation, and the hot topic today is transformation, technological transformation. We'll have 25 speakers and panelists, worldwide panelists. I hope you enjoy it. Today and tomorrow I'll be hosting. I will also be giving some talks, some interviews. You can follow us on the social media. There's going to be a raffle also at the end. And for 3 days, we'll have a set of topics that will be based on the global challenges. Tomorrow, we'll talk about technological challenges with different panels of companies that are directly applying technologies. And Friday, we will be discussing human challenges. We are around 5,000 people. 600 people here at the event, and many, many more people that are also taking part. So we'll say hi to all of us, all of you who are following us. A round of applause then to everyone that has made this come true. The topic of the event is 3 days for a better tomorrow, for a better future. I'm going to read this first. That I'd like to thank some sponsors. Grateful to Santex people, provincial, national government officials, different institutions, universities, sponsors, and journalists, colleagues that are here to cover this event. A special thanks to the government of Cordoba for encouraging local talent. I come here very often. This is a hub, top-notch hub. I'd like to thank Cordoba Acelera that has been encouraging our work here. Also, special thanks to Copa Airlines. Thank you for flying in this innovative adventure. Thank you to AmCham, Cordoba Turismo, CAIFI, the University of Siglo XXI. Thank you very much to all of the sponsors and collaborators. Having said this, we'll like to show you a video that is titled "The Right Question."
Never loses its shine or its futuristic appeal. And honestly, what a cool word to kick off a video, right? It's very easy to fall in love with technology. But wait, what about us? That's the question we have been asking ourselves for the past 25 years, every time we partner with this incredible force. Should we get along with technology invading our lives? Or perhaps use it to help us live longer? Should we keep collecting millions of apps? Or maybe develop an app that can deliver joy to millions? Should we be connecting through never-ending feeds? Or better connecting the ones who feed us? Should we surrender to AI and embrace an uncertain future? Or use it as a tool to build our own? You see, for us, it's not about stopping technology. It's about pausing to ask the right questions. Because the answer, well, the answer we already have. Santex. Yes, it's possible.
We'll now like to welcome Juan Santiago and Walter Abrigo. How are you? Are you okay? Good to hear that. We're here to be to be okay, to be fine, and we look forward that you feel much better after the 3 days. Thank you for being interested in this idea. We decided to open our company, our culture, our community to the whole city. Thank you to all of us, all of you who are following us by streaming, all of you that have come a long way. Today, they asked us for some pictures because we're looking good, we're well dressed, so we felt really encouraged. I don't know how many of you have seen us, dressed like this. I actually had to go buy one. It is possible. This is what the whole conference is about, this 3-day conference. This is our motto. We've been in the company for 25 years now. It's very important for us to have survived in this kind of industry for so long, doing what we like most, what we love, and always, being right in our target. We are so passionate about this business, and this has led us to be very courageous. We're always rethinking, redesigning ourselves. Yes, it is possible, is what we believe, that all of the things that we understand are oftentimes hard to change, but we believe they're not easy to change, but it is possible to change them. So we decided to do a logo rebranding to embrace the slogan that can feel probably a bit overwhelming or impossible, but we're at it. And one of the objectives we have is to get you out of the comfort zone, the comfort zone of the places we live in. As neurosurgeons Mario Puig says, it is the zone that we are familiar with. And for this reason, we call it comfort zone. Not so much because we are pleased to be there, but we are rather afraid of leaving it. And when we leave it, or we would try to, regardless of what we're referring to, we see clouds, very dark clouds, and we want to step back because we see a storm coming up. But it's not a storm, it's a big discovery. And that big discovery is that we step into a learning zone. And the greatest power that a learning zone has is that it changes us, it transforms us, and then we are empowered to impact many, many more people with what we do. So this is the invitation for the next 3 days to get you out of the comfort zone. One of the things we learned with Walter is that technology never remains steady. If we don't have this capacity to change and to adapt, and if we passionately embrace change, it'll be very difficult to survive in an industry such as this. So it takes a lot of work, a lot of personal work to face these challenges, to meet these challenges all the time. So this is the invitation for the next 3 days, so that you can gather with other people that think differently. We always tend to meet with like-minded people. This is what we want. We always do. So the invitation for the next 3 days is to break up with these stereotypes, to meet people that you haven't talked with before, so that you can nourish with all of this information. You have this challenge. You can think about new things, and if all comes up, fine than to step into a learning process. This is our expectation for the next 3 days. With this slogan, yes, it is possible, we believe and we invite you. We feel that we have a big responsibility to change the world of the people nearby. We have a huge responsibility based on our roles. So we invite you to do that, and we'd like to thank you for the years we spent together, for this beautiful present we're living, and of course, with for the future that is full of challenges. So this is the invitation. Let's be courageous to change, to say what you think, so that you're not afraid of, or you end up saying the things that everybody says in order to fit in and to feel comfortable. And let's try to make this impact we all want. That is the impact that AI and technology can bring about, which will be actually the pillar of all of the talks we'll be having during the next 3 days. Welcome and thank you. Thank you, Walter and Juanca. We'll now take a few minutes to discuss some of the topics we'll be dealing with. Innovation transformation will be the core topics. I'm a columnist at the La Nación newspaper, and now I have a lot of topics to write about, many stories. As an innovation journalist, the it never happened to me before, but now articles and the stories that I write become outdated so fast. AI is one of the leading topics. You can follow me on the social media to continue with this conversation. Every time I write a metaphor or I come up with a symbol, I like this one very much. Somebody coming from the crypto world. I don't know if you have dogs or pets. You see that the equivalent to a dog ear is about 7, 8 years, human ears, depending on the breed. And what we can see in a lot of technological avenues, we have this sort of dog ears. What we were expecting to happen in 30 years, it is actually taking place much faster. The word unprecedented, you can see over the last few years, has been mentioned so much. Unimaginable or unthinkable, unprecedented, with an important leader, which is AI, generative artificial intelligence, that has become 2 years old now with ChatGPT. This is a technology that in 2 years it's actually making more progress that is more predominantly in Latin America. It's kind of the current technology has an adoption rate that has to do with the number of people that use it that is very, very high in a region. In Brazil, in Argentina, you can take a look at this OpenAI data from a couple of weeks ago that shows this trend. When you So the question in the joke was whether that happened because you're too lazy or not. Anyway, we are at a time with a very high adoption rate in Argentina, for example, very similar to China, Australia, and the U.S. And this happens due to different reasons. We are a talent IT hub, a very important hub. We're in a very important company. it is also due to the fact that it's a very conversational technology. As Hispanics, we like engaging and talking. So 95% of the population of Latin America uses WhatsApp. This is the penetration rate. It's a very high rate. So there's a very interesting cultural feed with our culture. It's a technology that goes very, very fast, and it promotes leapfrogging, which, I mean, it becomes cheaper and cheaper, so countries can adopt some very cheap or cheaper applications. And finally, a geopolitical issue, nearshoring of the United States, where because of the Ukraine-Russia war, they're cutting down on the chain. So this is a very good opportunity for Latin America and the whole region. This is humbly speaking because this is new technology. We are not really familiar with it. So anyone that calls themselves an expert, that wouldn't be correct. So it's not really. We can't say that we are experts in artificial intelligence. We are actually fixing the engine of a plane during flight. We're doing analysis while we're running. So there are many metaphors to actually tell what's happening. Technology is one of the technological changes or the changes, but we have climate change as well, demographic changes, political, biological changes. There are many hurricanes around us, not only technology, that make a more complex world in the sense that there are many, many more nodes that are connected by many, many more interconnections. So we have a more complex world compared to the world we had before the pandemic. So we have a change, acceleration, complexity. So we need to learn to dance. It's not a world where, we could fix a part or an engine and the engine would start working. Every time, everything we touch has a systemic impact. I like this metaphor, to actually dance with complexity. And we need to get closer to the knowledge quadrant. I mean, what we know, what we don't know. And there are many things that we know, but we don't know. It's a tongue twister, actually. But the most important thing is this: is what we don't know, what we don't know. So, and we're bad at going that direction, that place. We'll have a panel called Disinformation, with a very fascinating debate about the future of work that has a negative bias, because it's hard for us to imagine the new professions that are arising, to determine the different skills and competencies that AI is replacing. Well, we will be replacing. Not that we're going to massively lose jobs. We will lose the description of jobs. We'll have very different things compared to the ones we see now. I'll show you a very inspiring video, brief video, that was sent a couple of days ago by someone who works in Germany. Fernando Alvera talks about this augmented imagination concept, which I think is very relevant and interesting for the context we're discussing. And there is a human watermark. There's kind of a place that we have advantages as human beings. Why is it so important? Since there's a lot of exponentiality, there are many things that are becoming worse, such as climate change. To address these issues, we incremental solutions are not enough. We need disruptive solutions, and reality is expanding so much. So we need to have a lot of imagination to actually be able to address a 2030 scenario. Somebody with a lot of creativity can have more intuition. I wrote this idea that is called Ideas in the Shower. I've tried an ice bath not long ago. I don't know if you've tried it. And I acquired this superpower. I had a cold for a whole week, so maybe I will put this. I'll use this as a title for the book, for the new book. But there's um, there's sort of a match between inflation rate in Argentina and ice baths. Something unique that I wanted to share. But there's a correlation, a high correlation between creativity and well-being, emotional well-being. For some reason, we become happier when we are in creative processes, and when we're in creative processes, we have better ideas. And it's fun to meet people that have fun doing what they like doing. And I said this before, when I visit startups and companies, when I meet fun people, and this is a great indicator that um, future is promising. When I see boring people in companies, that is an indicator that things will end up badly. With this, I will end up with this inspiring story. Every year in September, I travel to NASA to teach a course on business to business people in Florida. And in the Candor Center, there is a very nice beach, Cocoa Beach. A lot of surfing. You see, also the launchings of SpaceX, and there's this big store that is about 2 blocks. Many surfboards. That symbolizes the issue of innovation, because on the one hand, there's the rocket from NASA, and then the waves, and actually their logo is an astronaut surfing. And there's a museum where there's a video that shows the highest tide that was surfed. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a 30-meter high wave, and a 49-year-old surfer, and it was shot from the Nazareth lighthouse. The only way to survive was actually to stay on the surfboard. How big was or how big is the tallest wave we've had in human history? 100, 200. Actually, it was 524 meters high. The Empire State Building has 300 meters. This is a model. It's a higher tide, called in the Etubia Bay in Alaska, a very remote place. What happened was that there was an earthquake, so a whole mountain actually crumbled, and that created this giant tide or wave. There are no videos, but there were 6 people in the bay. 2 died. 2 were at the top of the picture you can see, which is on the Pacific side. So luckily they were able to survive. The most interesting story is that of a father that was with his son in the middle of the island. You see there in the bay, it was 10 p.m. And the father says that the son had already gone to sleep, and the mountain was sort of dancing, literally dancing, and he thought he was hallucinating. But 10 seconds later, he realizes that that was actually taking place. There was a mountain that was crumbling down, and he made a decision that saved their lives. What do you think he did? What does a surfer do when he sees a high wave? He goes straight to the wave instead of escaping. So he did that. He understood that what he has to do is something counterintuitive. Such a brave decision, you know. Their ears become started bleeding because of the sounds of the mountain climbing, but they survive. And for me, it's a story. Every time I tell it, it's a great metaphor that actually encourages us not to run away from the waves of change, but to make counterintuitive decisions. I would have loved to have a video of this moment because for sure it must have been something wonderful. So we sent this story to an expert on AI who came up with this video. I hope there isn't a lake like this and a mountain like this. Thank you very much for your attention. Now we can go straight to the first panel to open up this Santex week. So let me introduce the panel members. Great tech comes with great responsibility. That's the name of the panel. This is the insight we're going to use for the following discussion. So let me introduce Martin Massa, manager tool and regional Latin American manager. Martin has over 10 years of experience in the telecommunication field. He has an MBA from NYU. A round of applause, Martin. Welcome. The second panel member, Sebastian Cabo, a former manager from Tesla. It's an honor for us to have him here. Thank you. We're very much in contact with Sebastian, but it's the first time we meet in person. He started his first company while he was at university. He led many critical technological projects. He has an MA from Stanford University. The third panel member is Ivana Cavigliaso, Product Man CEO. Ivana, welcome. Product Man CEO that introduced and implemented technological improvements in the peanut industry. She has over 20 years of experience in the peanut industry. Juan Santiago, the moderator. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, Seba. This is a huge panel. Great. Thank you for being here and for making the time to enlighten us in this short period of time. I know, Ivana, you had something else, but you chose to come with us. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And you come from afar, so thank you. Seba, too. Martin, also. The main topic, as you probably know, is the challenges, the global challenges for the future. A little time ago, we talked about the different perspectives. What would I like to do with this panel? First, anyone can ask anybody else questions. I'm not going to ask you questions directly, but if somebody says yes, I'm going to go directly to you. This idea of having different points of view, different outlooks on things is exactly what we're looking for. You were not chosen just because you have your trains of thoughts and your expertise is very different. Martin, you are more into data. What we do with data, in fact, we have Seba, who's always thought about forward thinking, his being behind that, and how we add value in a continuous way. And Ivana, you are a role model in adding value inside, redefining things that seem to be simple, that come from something small like peanut, and everything that you can do that it sounds like a primary product, but you can disrupt that sector. The first question for me, what's your point of view? How do you envision a better tomorrow? That is the question. What does it mean to you to be better tomorrow? Because that's something that I've discussed with many of my friends before, and I've asked them, we are really backwards. We're worse than 15, 20, 30 years ago. And they told me, no, we're a lot better. They argue that we are better. What does that mean to you? What does a better tomorrow mean to you? A very simple question to start. Thank you so much. All right. On my side, I think all these benefits translate into productive life for everybody. I think the biggest challenge is that this is not just for certain sectors or elites. We want to equalize a lot of differences that we have at social level, and sometimes market dynamics for certain aspects to improve doesn't cascade. And I think in our region we see that quite a lot. And in your opinion, is that happening? Is that really actually happening? The variables that we see around the world, are they taking us to that better tomorrow based on what you just said? No. But I have hope. I still trust, and we are in this panel, and I kind of agree with the vision we're trying to learn. And I'm a technologist, so we can talk about it later when we talk about applied intelligence and applied imagination. That makes those things make people to produce more, to work better, and it works for everybody. It's not just for those who make tools to make money. I think that has to do with public policies. It's not because of the suppliers and vendors. I think it's not just we don't have to just invent good tools, but we have to apply those tools. So it has to do with the fact that we can apply those tools. Okay, Martin, in your case, you are a company that is rather controversial, to say it lightly. at least, at the least of cases, I'm not going to say anything that you don't know. A little while ago, we met in Uruguay, and we had a great conversation last year. It was, I think, in which what I said during that conversation was to take advantage of the opportunity so that we don't transition a model, but so that we transform a model. And most of all, the transactional, that means the hard data. You are huge data collectors. What is your outlook in when it comes to seeing where the world is going towards to use that data through the use of data? Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Juanca, for your kind invitation. Before answering your question, and I would like to compliment what Seba just said, I'm very optimistic. I honestly believe that productivity advances and technology in the last 200 years, they've always improved connections and the way we interact. And if you take a look at the economic indicators, we have a lot more productivity, more benefits in general. I honestly believe that today we can do things that we could not imagine before. And I think in the presentation we just saw, being able to use our creativity nowadays with tools such as AI, that gives us access to knowledge with no restrictions, and it removes lots of restrictions to create new things. And is that a good thing? Is it okay that there are no restrictions? I mean, that creativity is giving free will? No, of course not. There are people who use creativity to do good things, and then there are others who use it for bad things. I think it gives you access to think about the abundance of many more services, more customized experiences. And I believe that we are going to use multiple AI forms in our daily lives. And lately, that can lead us to be much more productive. And now, going into the data topic, why does the Tools for Humanity exist? From that same head that is designing AI, Matt Mann and Alex Brania, they started 5 years ago with that, and they already found the need that the AI is going to make evident many things. Something that for us is pretty obvious, which is to have the capacity to differentiate personalities or to show online humanity when more and more in our lives everything goes through internet and the digital ecosystems. We think that AI is going to particularly disrupt the internet as we know it. And it's going to be great for some things, but for other things, I think democracies are built on the foundations of information, and AI and algorithms checkmate on that. How tools like the ones that Tools for Humanity is building, this open infrastructure, and to making sure that this open infrastructure is useful to mitigate some risks and these technologies, and to make sure that the benefits cascade and reach everybody. Regarding data, I think that what you just said about it being controversial, I think it's because great part of that controversy comes from the lack of understanding. What Tools for Humanity does, and what the World Protocol stated, is that it's very counterintuitive from everything that we've seen in the last 20 years. Internet was born with a certain series of protocols, and then it migrated to something that perhaps 4 or 5 companies nowadays collect most of the activities that we do online, and our supplies was the information to create algorithms to give you more customized experiences, to spend more time on those platforms. But we believe that that has other external factors. The word protocol states that there is a new privacy layer where you don't have to give any personal information or something that identifies you to solve trivial things. So proving humanity today is we have a quadrant where we have to choose the traffic lights or identify bicycles or bridges, and nowadays ChatGPT solves that. So we're not giving personal data, but scanning your iris. I understand that as something extremely personal. What more personal than that, or what more irreplaceable than your own DNA? And to your point, one of the challenges that I clearly share with you and that I see with you is how do we identify what's humane and what is generated by AI? Today, more or less, those who are in the topic, we will be able to identify it. The other day, I was looking at Rick Hoffman, one of the LinkedIn founders. I don't know if you saw that he has like a stunt double who interviews himself, and it's fascinating. If you do that, you don't know who is who, which one is the real guy and who is the stunt double. And that persona, I don't understand. I don't know what that's going to be like if we try to identify it in 1 year. I was going to say 10, but it's actually 1 year from now. Will we be able to identify them? And I see that in the concept. What tools are we going to have, we human beings, available in the future to say this song was made by Lady Gaga or an artist or AI from the foundations? That I'm worried about, and that and data regulations, because collecting data to solve a specific problem is okay, but then most of us here, we don't know what happens with that data. What do companies do with the data they collect, with all of our data? I think that is the biggest question. Since it's not regulated, people are afraid. You touched a point that it was something that attracted me to Tools for Humanity. Nowadays, companies in that model that we saw in internet in the last 20 years, they were basically in a race for collecting data. All the companies have a table called user accounts or user creation, and all of them compete to have more and more users, because having more users in Silicon Valley means winning and having more capital access. What happens if that table that is key for these companies, it becomes open, is decentralized, it's public access, and then we are in control of that, and we have the possibility to choose who with and where we share that. So the word proposes that, to give you the control of your digital identity and footprint with some sort of surveillance concept. And when we conceived that, one of the main pillars was we have to decentralize that, and that's why we are using blockchain as an anchoring technology, and to make that synchronized. It's difficult. It will be much easier to have that as a solution, to do it centralized, because you can align everybody and it's easier, and nowadays it's what we're used to doing. But there are some experiences like Bitcoin that platforms can be escalated in a centralized way, and I think that's the challenge we have ahead of us. And doing that is going to help us be more reliable, to have open code, decentralized. And we think that something like that is going to be absolutely necessary. Let's debate. Is this better to have it decentralized, where users have their own safeguarding of their information? We have to work a lot on that, versus more of what we already know. You have to become reliable, we have to trust the company and make it more centralized. Well, reliability is key. I read a report from Adaman in the barometer where the less controls they have, the less people trust. How do you imagine the future? How do you envision a better future? Do you have any processes in the company that is creative? Please tell us how ideas come about. Is it that someone in the family say, yeah, is it the case? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it comes up like that. We work as a family. It's a family business. And I think that we have that entrepreneurial DNA. We're always doing new things. And these days, we had some events, and we went back 40 years from now when my dad started with the company, where we used to live in the farm, and we had light only at certain hours of the day because at night there was no more light. I was lucky enough to have that kind of childhood, and I'm now in a panel where I'm thinking, what am I doing here in this panel with these people? Because I listen to you, and honestly, what you talk about and what you say about technology, 40 years ago to date, of course, I'm optimistic. I have to say we're much better. Technology has helped us go through a lot of processes where I have to make sure that my peanut reaches a supermarket shelf around the world, where I cannot have any foreign body because it's food, and that can be done with a machine. When 40 years ago women did that, and they checked the peanuts one by one with their hands. Now we have a technology that all it does is separate the good peanut with the bad peanuts, and these machines guarantee quality. And nowadays we have technology introduced into aspects like, for us who are from faraway lands, from outside the big cities, we need more professionals. And I think education is the talent is an important aspect, very interesting aspect. And I think that we are introducing the companies are introducing to these topics because there is a need. We have to develop ourselves as human beings as well, and that's what we're working on a lot, actually. And I think people, we have to evolve and we have to change. We change a lot, but if we didn't have, there are 650 people in the company now, and working for the company, and I think those people are already introducing these things as a life-changing well-being things. And in your industrial plans, we thought that, well, it's a repetitive work, and we thought, okay, we have to work on that and we have to change that. But the technology has to be introduced to show them. I cannot be looking at a conveyor belt, seeing the peanuts that go in front of me, because I would leave it 5 minutes in. It makes no sense. We are people. At some point, I'm going to look up, and I'm not going to be so precise, so accurate. It's not that technology comes to replace that person, but it comes to help you so that you can develop yourself with other skills, and so that you can do something that adds value to the company. That's one of the things that I value the most from you. You're one of the few companies that I know of that has introduced what you mentioned, other senses and other means that are beyond the economic means. From a primary product, you've done amazing things, like from peanut shells, you produce energy. And then with the ashes of that energy that was produced, you make bricks for constructions. For me, that blew my mind. And out of peanut, and you make construction. How can you explain to me how you go in from point A to point B? tell us about first, whose ideas were they? Second, how did you vote those ideas that you said, okay, we're going to do this? Many of the ideas that come up have to do with, sometimes you have threats, right? Threats that come up from your whole process, your SWOT analysis. And peanut has a yield of 70-30, which is in a good year, 70% is grain and 30% is waste. We, since 2010, we measure the carbon footprint. Some years ago, we didn't talk about that, and now we have clients. Peanut is an exporter. In Argentina is the greatest peanut exporter, and since Europe is our main client, some things came up. First, we saw them as demands, and nowadays we find that is the path, that is the road. So we started measuring the carbon footprint, not only for the production, but also from the moment when we start the seeding up until the moment they're put on shelves. Every time I go on a plane, I see King Mani, the peanut, the King peanut, the brand King, which is your brand. Yes, and when we start looking at sustainability, that for us was very important, and that's when we had piles and piles of waste. We didn't know what to do with it, and then the peanut shell has a lot of calories, so it burned easily. It was combustible material, and then all the town received that sort of smoke. So we said we have to do something with it, and then my dad thought about putting this project on the right track, and then we, the 4 children that he has, we decided to follow him, and that's how we submitted the project. There is a plant that only generates energy with biomass, no other fuel, and it generates 10 megawatts by hour, 18,000 homes turning their lights with our energy. So it's not just the power that you use, the electricity that you have for the factory, it's also for the town. Yes, originally, all the energy was into the system, to Gamesa system, to the grid, and they distributed, of course, part of the energy that we have in the peanut plant that we process, because this one is in front of the peanut plant. We unshell the peanut, and by aspiration it goes directly to the generation, the electricity generation, the power generation plant. We not only use our pellets from our own production, but we also buy, because this is a peanut region, so we buy to other peanut producers the fuel that we need. And then we had the ashes. That was another piece of, we didn't know what to do with the waste, with the ashes. There were other projects, so we reduced that pile of ashes somehow. But then we said, okay, we need to do something else, and then those ashes, about 5% of what comes out from that system, it goes to that factory. The brick is much lighter. It's like a Lego, and now we build that with a more of a social impact than anything else. It's amazing, honestly. A company that is from such a faraway place can solve all of those problems at the same time. In my opinion, that is a very clear, very evident testimony that anything is possible. It is possible. Yes, it is. And you just have to be determined and do it. Seba, you're going to have to share the microphone. I don't know what happened with these mics. I'm sorry. Seba, in your opinion, without giving anything away from Tesla specifically, but if you do want to, of course, we won't complain. We're going to be very thankful. I'm going to get a message from the lawyers. No, thank you. What's the strategic point or north We have to have your feet in today, but your mind in the tomorrow. Tell me about what the future looks like. Write down, because I have exactly, and then buy Tesla shares. Every time that we think that something, they're going to have a new button or something, Tesla comes up with a super innovation. It must be one of the most innovative companies of the times. More than the next products, I'm going to talk about the challenges that I found that I didn't expect to see in Silicon Valley, especially when you come from that part of the world, such an advanced company as Tesla. The challenge was still what we talk about today, augmented technology. How do these technologies make people's lives better? Part of my project was the challenge of applying technology so that very smart people do things in a better way. And everything that is happening now with AI, how do we make all the production lines, people who think and design and devise and use the computer every day, up to the manual processes, can use AI to do things better? I saw with my own eyes that challenge. People are not well educated to understand why we're using those tools. They're afraid. Blockchain did not fear anyone. AI, everybody is freaking out about it. 60, 70 years of robots who help us and then those who control us, and we're afraid of. There is a lot of cultural baggage. And then when it comes to adopting technologies, I don't know who my customer is. Any company says, this is AI power. At marketing levels, sometimes many people don't want to use something when they see powered by AI because they don't understand it. It's like a black box, especially in terms of privacy, medicine. It's a tool. In any case, we're detecting patterns, finding a better way, and maybe increasing the power to judge by a doctor, by making decisions by a doctor. So I think that the future is to combine all of these tools so that we can be better and do a lot more, because the challenges are huge to do more with the same resources that we have now. Not certain employees in certain level of acquisition in certain countries in the world with certain tools, but another great thing that I tell people, especially when I come to Latin America, Tesla and the rockets, the problems are the same. The human problems are the same here and there. The change resistance is the same. We think it's different because they're more advanced, but it's the same. I see that all the time. I swear, because sometimes I shit my pants. We are human beings, and I'm terrified. What I feel, Seba, is in the analog world, in the world as it is now, we have huge problems. And we are taking everything towards that digital world where all of a sudden, because we come with a baggage. If I ask Google, where is the nearest coffee shop? And Google tells me, I go, I taste it, and it's true. It is right around the corner. There is a certain level of internal adoption to say, okay, what the search engine is telling me is true. There is some reliability, but now we're talking about a completely different animal. This is not a search engine. This is a database that thinks by itself, makes conclusions by itself. And that is done through the interaction with you and with the resources that it is connected to. And those resources have to do with the analog world that is biased by many things, connected to a lot of resources. And don't you think there is an opportunity that instead of taking all of these problems and digitalizing them and making them exponential towards the world because of the speed of the AI, the trust that the human who is interacting with the machine has. Is there a chance to maybe filter certain resources, certain sources, so that there is the final result is less problematic? Who's thinking about the impact if something goes wrong, in your opinion? There is an incentive to collect more and more data and to be the first one. So we don't know where we want to get to first, but I think that's the judgment, the final judgment day. If in the last mile you have a human being and you can check that information that is going to reach people, then you can making it completely automatic. That's when the problems start. And the other important part of the equation is regulation. How much do you make that a decision to be automatic? What kind of systems? Because we have autopilot in planes for the past 40 years. We still have two pilots, not two pilots, in the cockpit. And at the end of the day, for better or worse, we fly. And if we're flying autopilot, but if something goes wrong, then one of those pilots is going to take the wheel, take the control. In the past, it was the machine, the human beings. Where do you draw the line? I think that's where we have to work more and to find that balance, because it may open lots of opportunities, or we can really screw up. I'm sorry if I didn't tell you what I saw for the future, but I'm not ready. At least I'm trying to understand the future in this way. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I want to live in your future, Seba, but I think that nowadays we're in a very interesting place to attack these problems before they actually become a reality. A few weeks ago, I was invited to MIT to give a talk, and it was a very interesting talk. And what I experienced there was very nice, because one of the main topics had to do with robotics and interaction between humans and robots, and how the robot's software, the progress of the robot and the interaction with the human being depend upon the evolution of the software. While if the software doesn't move forward, because the robot, you touch them and they seem human. It's impacting, but this is shocking. But the software is what is delaying that evolution. When it comes to cars and mobility, is something similar happening, or does it have to do with the hardware rather than the software? So does it have to be with the car body rather than the software? No. Well, under certain complicated conditions, the autopilot with 8 cameras works well. At the end of the day, it's a decision-making process. We have senses. It's what we do. We have the eyes, the brain, and we are the ones who make those decisions. The software is the one that makes those decisions based on the stimuli that it receives. The cameras detect everything quickly, the frames. When will that stop that being supervised? Well, when we believe that it makes decisions with the same quality and at the same speed than a human being. That is the promise, that is going to drive better than a human being. But who's going to make that decision? Who is going to actually tell us? I can guarantee, and we discussed this with Martin and Data, if I want open code and I want an industry cooperation, the academia and companies, if we certify that our own software makes decisions with the same capacity as a human being. So they have different kinds of training. They're restricted to a certain geographic characteristics. They don't know how to react outside San Francisco, for instance, because they were not trained to react outside San Francisco. At the end of the day, you either restrict the model or you add the human component to solve the problems that the model is not ready to solve. When will they be able to solve all problems? Maybe in a little while, but then you have to certify, and that's a whole different debate. And who's going to make that decision?
Claro,
That's it's to validate the software, but there's software that also runs, nuclear power plants. But there's always somebody in charge that has to accept the decision. We speak about the fact that technologies opens up horizons, but also brings up limitations. What you were saying about San Francisco, so there are some restrictions, some limitations. A car that was started like this and it would just start, and how that impacts the use of the skills of the person. With my kid, we landed in Los Angeles. We were driving the car, and my kid puts on the GPS, and I said, "Okay." We got to light and the GPS, and I was, and he said, "Daddy, you have to drive to the right, no left." And he said, "No, right," but the GPS is saying right. I almost gave him a slap on his face, and I said, "Darling, I mean, put up your head and look at the sign. It says to the left. So the GPS is wrong," he said. And then we rely on those systems, so much. It's really crazy. And this is, a very familiar road. Anyways, I'd like to ask you, the three of you, so that we can wrap up, what recommendation you can give to all of the participants today that are going to be with us for the next 2 days. Some people have had their own experiences already. Some people may be fearful, skeptical. What kind of suggestion or recommendation can you give the whole audience as to how to leverage and take the advantage of these 3 days here? I think this was said before, and I think you said it at some point at Santex. You never thought you would be here, and you said it was hard to survive in the tech industry. I think resilience is the word, and we are resilient in Latin America. I believe that this is something that can actually help us a lot. And the recommendation is to question things, to be creative, and basically to leave the comfort zone, and that implies taking risks, to question things. And we have a tool such as AI today that actually kind of uh, you know did away with a lot of barriers, and AI is doing, I mean, a lot of barriers were brought down, barriers that encourage creativity and creation. So taking risks and leaving the comfort zone is my recommendation. Ivana? I believe that the most important thing I have to say is that you should learn to know yourselves. I think that's the starting point. You know, a SWOT analysis, a personal SWOT analysis, so we can identify our weaknesses, to work on them, and then be courageous enough to do things with a passion and without fear, and with a lot of passion. if you're here to learn, and that's the most important thing. Learning, uh, you know, the I will learn this later type of thing is not right. Those A lot of people who fail actually is because they thought they knew what they were doing, and then at some point, such as Blockbuster, for example, and there's no turning point. So we'll talk about many of the things that we said. Here we go deeply into them, and then working together with AI and compete. Thank you very much for your time. A warm round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, Ivana, Sebastian, Martin, Juan. A great honor to have you all here. If you want to make questions, you can scan the QR code for the next panels. Any question you have, you can, and there's also simultaneous interpretation. You can also scan the QR code in the panels in the hall. After the coffee break, we'll be having the coffee break in a couple of minutes. The talks will be in English. So if you need translation, then you can scan the QR code or get your devices. We'd like to thank the National University of Cordoba and Catalina Alberto, who's the dean, for declaring the interest of Santex Week. Oste, Guido, there's a stand that you can visit. Thank you, Oste, for supporting Santex Week. We now Juan, are you there? Sebastian Cabos, are you there? Ivana, because there was a question, Juan. Let's, we should come back to the stage because there was a question.
Hacemos una pregunta del que llegó por QR hace un ratito y luego ya damos presencia al siguiente bloque. La mandó Ismael Tolosa. Recuerden que para los que mandan preguntas, interactúan en redes.
There are different rewards at the end of the day for those that want to make questions. So the question is about Black Mirror scenario. We need 30 days to actually reply that, and how to avoid that scenario. I haven't seen Black Mirror, but I think that what Warren does is pretty much like what is done in Black Mirror. But again, we've gone through this before in the last 200 years, how we've been adopting technology, becoming more productive. A lot of work was automated, and in the manufacturing industries and other fields. However, you talked about Kodak, Blockbuster, BlackBerry. We use iPhone, we use Messenger, Yahoo, for example. So I think we're ahead of technology, that I see it more as an opportunity, because it is the first time that you can speak with a computer and express your creativity to build up a solution, a software, a new application. And I remember my first computer was a Commodore 64. It was much more difficult back then. I think that barriers were broken apart, so a lot of gaps were narrowed. Um, so I believe that history, in a way, proved that uh, we've always been on the right track. Personally, I believe that it will depend on us. This is what I think. If we want a Black Mirror, we're on the way to get it because we have all the right conditions for it to take place, but it depends on us. I always say that it's very easy to get involved in the problem. People get involved in the problem. The diagnosis, the problem is really clear. We have this problem. Yes, we do. Yeah, that's too bad. Okay, then let's go play soccer. No, I mean, if you want to get to a solution, you need to get involved. And to be part of the solution, you need to stop playing soccer to pay attention to how you're going to design a solution that will not end up in Black Mirror. So my vision is that it will all depend on our involvement in the solution, not in the problem, because the problem and the diagnosis is clear. We are now ready to introduce our special guest. Thank you again. Well, now to welcome the governor of the province of Cordoba. Let's begin with a warm round of applause, Juan Walter, for having this meeting in Cordoba and for opening it up for everyone that wants to participate and to be in an event such as this, a high quality event. So before um, to start, I would like to welcome you all who are visiting Cordoba for the first time, and it is an honor for us to welcome you here to be an innovation and thinking center, because I was looking, at the quality of our speakers innovating, thinking about the future with the technology that is increasingly moving ahead. That is and having this event in our city is for us something that makes Cordoba stronger. And let me tell you a little about our history. There are about 5,000 participants. It is a minority here in the room regarding the impact and the different talks that are going to be happening in the future. Cordoba, I mean, education in Cordoba has been really a pillar. Cordoba was founded by the Jesuits. It's a 451-year-old order, and they make Cordoba the first educational center with the first university. And they were knowledge, they had to do with knowledge and production. And this is one of our features. We still supported not only, the production, but also the knowledge sector. In Cordoba, the link with the university and production, talent generation, 9% of the population in Cordoba. We export almost 15%, for example, in terms of knowledge. And Santex exports 90% of what they produce. Is the figure right? Yes, it is right. And this ecosystem, the Jesuits ecosystem, that is the connection between education and the production sectors, and then the Industrial Revolution with the aircraft industries and the car industry. We were the docta. And then, industry and production came along. But first of all, it was education. So we are a talent generation center, and talent is really paramount. And Cordoba has an ecosystem, a beautiful ecosystem. We're talking about 12 universities in Cordoba city alone. There are 300,000 students. There are postgraduate students. So talent generation and the fact that we have, a lot of startups and entrepreneurs. This is also the result of this ecosystem that Cordoba has been working on for some time now, for a long time now. And one of the cornerstones of one of the discussions is about the private and public sector's joint work. This is what we've been doing in Cordoba. This is a sector that has flourished with the technological cluster that started identifying an opportunity to develop systems back then. And the public-private sectors work together to pass legislations and public policies, initiatives, and regulations that I believe paved the way for Cordoba to be one of the most important hubs, not only in Argentina, but also in Latin America. Any ecosystem that you see, and also the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I'd like to thank Santex for this, because Santex is not only a company that became global from Cordoba. It didn't go to Buenos Aires to become global. It became global from Cordoba. I know that you're opening up offices in Buenos Aires, but you were able to make it global from Cordoba and to be present in 18 countries. So for us, Santex, we're really proud about Santex, and we're proud because Santex supports the entrepreneurial system. This is why I wanted to be here to be with you, because I know you come from many different countries, and for you to have an idea of how important it is for us to have Santex in Cordoba, because Santex is a collaborative company. It's a company that thinks globally but doesn't forget about its origins. It's always open to public initiatives, that has supported a lot of startups, that has generated a commitment with the environment. The offices that I had the possibility to inaugurate when I was a mayor, it's an office that measures the carbon footprint, for example. Back then when these issues were beginning to be discussed, the office has a circular economy program in place, and we continue to we understand that sustainability is part of the system, and we believe that Argentina shouldn't lose this opportunity. And Santex has this. So I wanted to be here to thank you in person, to you both, for being here in Cordoba, for hosting this event here, and for the first time to open up this meeting so that we can have many more people who can have access to talks that wouldn't be able to participate. So, and you may remember some talks or some speakers. You're making a big impact, and you're creating sort of the willingness to start, to innovate, to this is why I wanted to be here, to thank you on behalf of all of the people from Cordoba. Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome to Cordoba.
Muy bien.
Muchas gracias.
Una foto. Muy bien. Mientras hacemos una foto final con el gobernador, le agradecemos.
Thank you, Governor, for being with us. Coming up, we'll have some international speakers. We will now have a break, a 15-minute break, and then we're going to resume. Thank you.
Disfruta más fácil.
Bueno, muy bien. Vamos a ir volviendo al auditorio. Nos espera una segunda parte de la jornada muy especial con un panel de cierre con 3 invitadas que van a estar directamente desde Silicon Valley y ahora en lo inmediato.
So we're going to start with our next conference. Meanwhile, let me tell you that we were showing a video by the tourism agency of Cordoba. I would like to thank Darío Capitani. Thank you, Darío. And thank you, Gustavo.
Les recordamos que hoy el tema es desafíos.
The topic today is global challenges. Tomorrow we're going to be starting at 9 technological challenges, and Friday 3 days for a better future will focus on human challenges. So it's an incredible program. Tomorrow we'll have a panel with traditional companies that will discuss how they're using generative AI. That's going to be at 10 a.m. So we're ready to start. We'll start this second part of this day. It is an honor for me to introduce our next speaker. It is a privilege to have with us a leader, which is the most expensive company in the world, which is NVIDIA. Let's welcome Jonathan Cohen. Please let's welcome Jonathan on the stage. Thank you. Jonathan works for NVIDIA. It is the most expensive company in the world. He worked for Apple before. You can tell us where you're gonna work next, so we can start buying stock options. Jonathan will give his talk in English. You can scan the QR code or get your translation devices. It is an honor for us to introduce Jonathan Cohen, who is a VP of Applied Research at NVIDIA. He leads several engineering platforms such as NEMO that incubates different AI technologies such as LLM alignment, speech modes, and genomic tools. He has 14 years of experience at NVIDIA. He was in Apple before, and he was in computer graphs. He won the technological award in 2007. A warm round of applause to welcome Jonathan.
You stand to the side here. There we go. So thank you again, and thank you, Juan Santiago, for inviting me. And it's the first time in Argentina. It's been a great trip so far. I'd like to talk to you about the future, as I see it, as we see it from NVIDIA, and this notion of AI factories. As you said, I'm Jonathan Cohen. I'm very happy to be here. There's been a shift in computing in the last, let's say, decade. And you can think of this as a shift from humans writing software to computers writing software. The fundamental technology that's enabled artificial intelligence is machine learning. And the idea of machine learning is that rather than a human thinking about what is the algorithm that this computer is going to execute to compute some task, Instead, I show the computer many examples of the task being completed, and somehow from that it learns its own algorithm. And it encodes this typically in a neural network. And this notion of humans writing software shifting to AI writing software means you can automate the production of software. And fundamentally, that's the shift that people call Software 2.0. Rather than computing systems retrieving information from databases, now they can generate information and responses. And there is the computing infrastructure has shifted fundamentally from CPUs, which are very good at powering human-coded algorithms, to GPUs, which turn out to be really good at executing computer-coded algorithms. And the rise of NVIDIA is really just a consequence of this shift. Generative AI is the core technology that really, I would say, was invented in really just the last 4 or 5 years. And I believe it will reinvent every industry. The notion of we have factories and industries, and factories, we give them raw material, and they produce products. Well, an AI factory, you feed it raw material in the form of data and compute and power, and it produces the output of intelligent systems. And I want to talk today a little bit about what's inside this factory and how do you create one and operate one. So you can think of, you have people writing software that implements the AI algorithms that you then run in your AI factory that then generates tokens, knowledge, results, that then you want to connect into your industry. And the world's industries is about $100 trillion a year business. And so, what's the potential impact of AI on the world? It's hard to quantify. It's tremendous. I think it will transform every industry. But the work of using AI to transform every industry is going to take a long time. So what are the fundamental building blocks of generative AI? You start with something that's called a foundation model. You typically would want to customize it. And you need to feed it with data at every step of the way. So let me go through these one by one. Did that work? There we go. A foundation model is simply kind of a baseline AI system. And the reason they're called foundation models, and this is like, again, a new term that was coined, I think, only 2 or 3 years ago. But the idea of a foundation model is rather than training a new machine learning model to do one task, what if I make a much bigger investment and train a very large model that can do a whole lot of tasks with no further instruction required? Just right off the bat, this model is pretty good at a lot of things. And therefore, it can serve as a foundation for building an AI system. The first very popular AI models, neural networks, about a decade ago were using labeled data sets. And the very famous example of AlexNet, which was an image classification. So I show it an image, and it tells me what it saw. This then migrated to working with unlabeled data sets rather than training your model with lots of images with lots of human labels, being able to work from unlabeled data. A good example of this was something called BERT, which was really the first, I would say, good model for understanding human language. And BERT was trained not with any labels, just feeding it lots and lots of text written by people, like all of the contents of Wikipedia, for example. The next step beyond this was generative models, which instead of just analyzing language, could actually generate it. Probably the most famous example of this is ChatGPT. Now we have multimodal generative models that instead of just operating on text, can operate on audio, video, images, text, genomic data, weather, outputs of weather simulation, physical traces, all kinds of the modalities of the world, both analyzing and producing. Mixture of experts models, which are kind of the new technology where you combine many smaller models to make smarter models. And I think the first example of something that you could call a reasoning model, which is OpenAI's O1 model, which is able to, in some limited way, think I don't want to anthropomorphize too much. These are not humans, but a model where you can give it a problem that requires multiple steps, and the model on its own is able to take multiple steps to reach a solution. And I think we're just going to keep seeing more and more progression of these foundation models. So you start with your foundation model, let's say an open source model like a Llama model from Meta. But what you're going to want to do is customize it. And customizing a model usually means three things. First, you might want to teach it a skill. I want to teach this model to be very good at planning a trip for a tourist, or very good at looking over my financial reports and spotting inconsistencies, or whatever the thing I care about is. I also want to give it values and a personality, and I'll say more about that in a moment. And I want to teach it facts. I want to teach it maybe how to speak my language, relevant facts in my industry, relevant facts in my region. And in all these ways, I can start with a generic foundation model that's really good at a lot of stuff, but probably doesn't know the details of my language, my local idioms, my local resources, my local values, my cultural values, all of these things. And I can turn it into something that's much more suited to the problem that I want to solve. This notion of how I turn a foundation model into something that has the right values is called alignment. And this was, in my opinion, really the key technology that enabled ChatGPT, that turned the technology from generative AI into what we now think of as these very surprisingly human-like intelligent systems. And let me give you an example. If I were to ask a language model, what are some great wines from Argentina? There is no mathematical equation I could write that would say what is the right answer. There's many ways you could answer that question, and it's very contextual. So for example, one correct answer in one context would be for the system to start recommending some vineyards. That would be a reasonable response for a chatbot that I want to be friendly and helpful to a tourist. But it might also be totally inappropriate in a different context. I might be deploying this chatbot in an HR setting, or financial analyst setting, or something else, and I don't want it to answer questions about wine. It has no opinion. It's an AI. It can't taste wine. It's not a person. It's not a trusted resource when it comes to wine tasting. So in that case, I'd want the answer, as an AI, I have no opinion. There's no right answer here. I mean, this is a really great illustration of the importance of human values and how do you teach an AI your human values. There's actually a lot of research on how to do this. These are some papers from my group, but again, it's called alignment, and it's a very important topic. How do we take these AI systems that are not people, that did not grow up in any particular culture, they don't understand the world the way we do, and give them some alignment to our values? And so I think this is a really important step in creating AIs that are suitable to regional needs or industries or local businesses. Jensen in February of this year, this is NVIDIA's CEO, he was at the World Government Summit, and he said every country needs sovereign AI. Every country must own the production of their own intelligence. And I want to talk a little bit about what does this mean and why do we say this. And this really gets into the third pillar of building a generative AI system, which is data. Oh, sorry. So data comes in roughly two forms. We can call it structured data and unstructured data. Structured data would be the contents of a database or a spreadsheet. This is data that is labeled, it's organized according to a schema, it's well understood. This is the province of computing systems for the last 60 years. But most of the world that we're surrounded by is unstructured data. This is your emails, these are newspaper articles, this is a recording of me speaking today. It's just raw data of people doing things, or the products of your job, or the pictures in your phone. And there is a tremendous amount of both structured and unstructured data in the world today. people in the AI field talk about we're going to hit the data wall. We're already training large language models. A model like Meta or GPT-4 or the Nemotron models from NVIDIA, they're already trained on every single byte of the internet, basically. There's no more of the internet to download to train a model. Where are we going to get more data to train these models? Well, there's a lot more data in the world than is accessible by scraping the internet. The sum, these are estimated numbers, but of all of the enterprises, all of the businesses in the world today, have a total of about 11 zettabytes of unstructured data, of total data, most of which is unstructured. An estimate is, over the next 3 years, that will double. So 20 zettabytes would be roughly 800,000 times the contents of the Library of Congress. So the US Library of Congress contains every book published in the United States. So we think about how much data there is, in books and on the internet, and there's 1 million times more data than that. But that data is locked inside governments, businesses, agencies. It's all of the data that you all have access to. And I think this is the heart of creating customized AIs that are suitable to the tasks and the culture and the problems that you need to solve. And so when you think about a sovereign AI strategy, building AIs that meet your needs, I think tapping into this data is really important. So this is just a few of the projects around the world that NVIDIA is partnering with. In most cases, a successful sovereign AI project requires a partnership between local government and local industry to build the compute infrastructure, but also to collect the right kind of data. And you could think about what you're really doing is you're creating a sovereign AI factory that's going to, again, make a capital investment in the computing infrastructure you need. Probably, not necessarily, but at least as a starting point, building on one of the existing foundation models, adding a lot of your own data onto it, but really thinking deeply about, what is the purpose here? Are you going to use this as an engine for economic growth to startups can tap into this AI and build products and services on top of it? Are you going to plug it into local scientific discoveries, industries, and scientific topics that are relevant and important to the local economy, the local governments, as a platform for improving the local governments, or the theme of this conference, improving people's lives using this kind of AI? And again, it's hard to imagine an AI that isn't culturally sensitive and deeply knowledgeable in local language being a platform that a local government could actually use to build goods and services for its people that would serve them as well. And so with this intention, you can think about, well, what is the local data that we have access to that with a concerted effort we actually could collect and use to create a local sovereign AI system? Together with the investment in computing infrastructure, the expertise, probably tapping into local universities and computer science departments, and producing the different forms of AI systems that can be used as a foundation for a sovereign AI project. There we go. In Japan, there's a successful project underway. I just wanted to mention it. So it was a pretty large infrastructure investment, which is a data center, computing, networking, all of that. This facility called ABCI, working with NVIDIA and some local partners, and they're working towards building a fully Japanese AI model. Hirotake Ogawa, who's one of the principals at ABCI, has this quote: "As generative AI prepares to catalyze global change, it's crucial to rapidly cultivate research and development capabilities within Japan." So let me just close by talking a little bit about, once you have an AI system, you have your own ChatGPT-like model, what do you do with it? Well, I think that the future is what I would call an AI worker. And so, people were speaking earlier about automation. And fundamentally, technology is something we use to automate things that people could have done. Every technology I can think of is automating something that some point in history people did. And we don't do anymore. We don't have to walk from one town to another. We can ride a car, right? It's solving something we could have done ourselves, and it becomes second nature to us that we don't have to do this ourselves anymore. We have machines to do it for us. And you can think about all of this, especially rote work that people do in operations of businesses and governments that could be assisted with intelligent systems. And this agent that's doing that work is really what this AI worker would be. So everything from helping with customer service, creating content, helping software engineers. I think this is one of the places where the technology has been adopted very quickly is software engineering AI copilots. I think people who start using these, it depends a little bit what kind of software engineering you're doing, but people who start using these tools find them very helpful. Product R&D. This is just a McKinsey quote, whether you believe it or not, I don't know. But McKinsey says that generative AI has the potential to generate 2.6 to 4.4 trillion in value across industries. And this is a reflection of potential productivity gains or new products and services that could be built using AI. So NVIDIA's CEO Jensen, sort of famous for saying, the more you buy, the more you save. And my version of this is, what is this notion of an AI flywheel? The more you work, the more you improve. This is a notion that is intuitive to all of us. When you hire a person to do a job, they come into this job, they come into your company with their education, their previous experience, their life experience. They already know how to speak the language. They already know basic math. They know how to read and write. You didn't have to teach them that. And you give them some basic initial onboarding. You teach them, here's our company handbook, here are our values, here's how to do your job. But you don't expect them to be that good. And usually they aren't. And they start doing their job, and you give them feedback, and they learn. And the more they do their job, the better they get. And the reason you know that this happens is you pay people more money the longer they've been at your company because they're more valuable to you. Why else would you give someone a raise every year except that you assume that the more they do their job, the better they get at it? It's intuitive. This is a flywheel. Flywheel is something that you start it spinning, it keeps spinning. And I think for any valuable AI system to be deployed in the real world, it will have to have a flywheel. The first time you start with your foundation model, you fine-tune it with some data, you test it, you deploy the system, and it's not going to be that good. But people are going to start using it. This is a system that looks at, let's say, our business transactions and looks for anomalies. And a human is overseeing it, and it says, I think this might be an anomaly. And the person looks at it and is like, no, that's not. Or a person says, here's some anomalies the system should have caught, and it missed it. And the human provides this feedback. And the more the system operates, the smarter it should get. And you have to build into any AI system, just like you do with a human, this notion of a flywheel, where the more that the system does its job, the better it gets. Is there a future where someday we fully automate and there's no human at all? I don't know, maybe. It's hard to imagine for many critical tasks. Just like most people at most of our companies, they don't get to do their jobs with no oversight. There's typically people watching out for other people doing their jobs, providing quality assurance, mentoring, right? The same thing should be true for AIs. But these AIs will get more and more intelligent, and we will trust them more and more based on the track record that they build up. And so I think when you plan a deployment of any AI system or the engineering of an AI system, this concept of how do you build a flywheel into it from the beginning, I think is critically important. I'm not going to go through this slide, but I just wanted to mention, so at NVIDIA, we have a software platform called NeMo, and it's precisely designed for this. So NeMo includes all of the technology you need to train a model, customize a model, deploy a model, collect usage information, turn that into training data, redeploy it, reevaluate. It's a collection of microservices. There's some Python modules. It's kind of a very large platform. And so I encourage people to check this out as something that's really designed around this notion of deploying an AI with a real flywheel in an enterprise. You can get started at ai.nvidia.com. My colleague Pedro taught a course today and is going to teach another one tomorrow. We'll go through some of this technology there. You can play. We have a whole catalog of models of different sorts. You can interact with them through the web page. Many of them you can download and run them yourselves. There's prototype AI applications and then recipes for how to deploy and build some basic applications there. And all of this, again, is the technology and the infrastructure that you need to build one of these AI factories. But the real work of connecting the AI factory into industry is really just beginning. And I think what it's going to look like is lots and lots of innovative local companies, technology companies, startups, consulting companies, thinking through how to build AI systems with flywheels and integrating them into business processes across all the industries. And so that's the work that really has to begin. And with that, let me conclude and again say thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you for inviting me to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Bueno, un lujo enorme tener.
It was a huge honor to have him here. When Walter and Juanca told me, I couldn't believe it, that the VP in charge of applied in research for NVIDIA was going to be here. I was so excited, and he talked about flywheel. That's what most people are talking about. The AI, generative AI experts are talking about, and we thank you so much, Jonathan, for talking about that. And now we're going to have the last panel of the afternoon. It's also a great honor to talk to them today. We are in direct communication with 3 people from the West Coast in the US. Now I'm going to introduce you to them: Lyric Kaplan, Rebecca Wan, and Michelle Wan. Let's see if they're connected already. And until they are connected, Lily Kaplan is main advisor of product for Snap. She is a lawyer based in California and is part of the Goodwill League promoted by Santex. She's a specialist in ethics and misinformation. Misinformation is the main topic of this panel. We also have Rebecca Wan, a great friend, personal friend from more than 30 years, and Santex, great friend too, from all the Santex community. We're very happy to have Rebecca here with us. Thank you. She's an expert in AI. She gives conferences around the world, and she's a partner in the Calais Fund. She was born in South Korea, and now she lives in the West Coast in the US. She's a Stanford University, Arizona University engineer from MIT, an amazing resume. And also is the case of Michelle Wang, coming from the finance world, and she's currently working in special projects in TikTok. She manages the special projects office. She worked in SoftBank and several private equity, Blackstone. It's a pleasure to have you. We're going to start the whole interview in English. My English is not good. Sorry about that. First,
Michelle, for joining us. How are you? Great. We are checking the microphones, but I think it's everything okay. So as we tell us, today the main topic of this last panel that we have is misinformation. And the first question, I'm a journalist, so I have to ask of the hot topic of the week, that are the elections in the United States. So this question is for Rebecca and for Lyric. What do you think were the role of misinformation in the last election in the States? I don't know, Rebecca or Lyric, if you want to start.
I'm happy to start. Hi,
Okay.
saludar en español porque me toca saludar en cordobés.
I'm going to speak Spanish a little bit to say hi, and my family, my Santex family, is very dear to me.
Elections, we had the results last week. We're still processing, I believe. One thing that was really stunning to me is the role of the narrative and potentially misinformation in the results of these elections. I've been looking at a lot of different analysis, and of course there's commentary on what went right and what went wrong for both parties. But one of the comments that really stuck out to me is this notion of, the old school grassroots door-to-door campaign did not work. Vice President Kamala Harris had, I think, 50,000 people on the ground in states like Pennsylvania, raise more money, use more money for social media ads, and yet we saw the impact on popular vote. I think what the Trump campaign managed to understand was the role of A, influencers like Joe Rogan, and B, the creation of a narrative at low costs, which could be pushed through a lot of different media. So the threats presented by both parties, in my opinion, both were campaigning on threats. The narrative presented by Trump's campaign was more effective. And there were a lot of videos and misinformation created on the danger of immigrants, on the danger of inflation, on the danger of government overstepping on people's rights. And some of this information didn't come even from the United States. It's been proven that some of that came from countries like Russia and China. And so I think we're entering a phase where it's not whether the technology can create narratives that look very real, but it's a matter of how much cost it takes for either campaign to create these very real-like videos that can be contributing to this narrative. That, for many voters, it became reality. And I will go to the extent of saying that this is not just influencing the opinions of the domestic population in the US, but in talking to some of my friends in Argentina, for example, I could actually see and hear talking points by Fox News in my friends in Argentina. So I know that the scope and reach of many of these narratives goes beyond the US, and that is actually something that concerns me greatly in the future of democracy.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Lyric, if you want to answer, and I also add the question that what do you think will be the next presidential policy towards misinformation?
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. And thank you for the introduction. It was so nice. And so misinformation and disinformation isn't something new. It's been around for a long time. Back in the day, we used to see different political ads on mainstream television, and it was very obvious who paid for the ad and who was intended to be bashed in the ad. And now with, in recent years and with the rise of social media, misinformation has changed form and speed and effectiveness. And that has influenced political campaigns. Social media companies have most of their revenue from advertising dollars, and so there's a huge incentive to allow political advertisements from various political parties, but also that allows nefarious bad actors in order to purchase political ads and obscure the origin of them, which can influence voters and can undermine democratic institutions. And so I think that we are going to see misinformation and disinformation on a widespread scale moving forward in most modern elections, moving forward as a natural course of campaigning. And so I'll jump into talking about, I think, the new presidential policies that we may see in the future in the new Trump era. And so I think that the AI and disinformation policies are going to be similar to what the Trump administration expressed during his first term, which was really focused on maintaining American leadership in artificial intelligence. In 2019, he released an executive order explaining just that and highlighting reducing barriers to AI innovation and focusing a lot on national security. And I think that we're going to continue to see that trend moving forward in the Trump administration.
Great, thank you very much. And Michelle, what do you think are the main strategies of social media companies in this topic? What are they doing to combat misinformation?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for the introduction, although my Spanish is not good enough to understand it.
Okay.
You asked a very loaded question, which is like, what is the role for social media to combat misinformation? It's a really big one, especially given people are increasingly consuming a lot of content on these social media platforms. And one of the difficulties is that, especially I'll just speak from the perspective of TikTok, is that we're all user-generated information, which means that these are, we need to partner with fact checkers. We need to partner with external people to actually make sure that we don't have misinformation. To actually step back, keeping these platforms safe is a really big job. It's one that we take very seriously, and I think most of our peers take it very, very seriously. I think a lot of companies are investing a lot of money and a lot of human resource into that in the context of whether it's technology to improve the efficacy and accuracy, as well as human, in terms of actually having human labor for these fact-checking, for these content moderation. I think for particularly when it comes to misinformation, it's one that we have to take very seriously. Whether it's the election that's happening, and a lot of these also, during COVID time in terms of these health information. So all is to say is something that the platform taking seriously and investing a lot of money and human resource to it.
Great, thank you very much, Michelle. Lyric, a question for you. You said that misinformation is not new, that we have a lot of histories this. What are the main strategies or tools of misinformation you saw in the last month in a global level? Is there any one that surprised you or amazed you?
A lot of them surprise or amaze me.
Okay.
But especially there's a lot of deep fakes. There's deep fakes and synthetic content. AI-generated images, videos, audio, voice cloning, robocalls. There are so many tools being used in the elections and different elections across the world, not just in the U.S. election. For example, in the last Indian election, they found that robocalls using voice cloning from local politicians was incredibly effective. And 8 times cheaper than using human callers at call centers. And that in the 2 months leading up to that election, there were 50 million robocalls or AI automated calls placed to voters, and found that it had a significant effect on elections. And so that's just one example of how deepfakes can be used. We also saw it in the US election. There's also chatbots powered by generative large language models, which is very top of mind right now with so many different social media platforms having them, including Snap's My AI. And I, have to echo what Michelle was saying about how companies are working so hard in order to mitigate the risks that come up, but they are novel and they are nuanced and they are very challenging to combat in real time. And using real-time fact checkers for every single, potential misinformation or misstated fact is not realistic for social media companies. And so it really is many different tools that they're using in order to combat real-time harms. And they can include hallucinations by these models. For example, saying that Kamala Harris won the election before it was even election day. They can be misleading voters about polling locations or candidates even running in an election. And so we're seeing a lot with chatbots right now and a lot of different tools being deployed in order to prevent, negatively influencing elections. And then there's also micro-targeting and psychographic profiling, which has been around for a while. I think the most well-known example of it was Cambridge Analytica, right, which was using Facebook data and farming it from millions of users. I think it was 80 million users in order to create behavioral and preference profiles in order to micro-target political advertisements in order to sway political opinion and exploit biases, existing biases that people may have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lyric. Rebecca and Michelle, today in the audience we have a lot of people from the government, from the national government, provincial government. What kind of strategy do you think you can suggest in order to combat misinformation from Latin America, not from the US, but from other countries? What would be your advice or your suggestion for our countries to start to combat these kind of practices?
The joke is that for politicians, misinformation can be an effective tool. So first, you have to want to get rid of misinformation, right? And I joke, but it's half a joke, because I do believe that one of my concerns is that our newer, the younger generations may have a relationship with the truth that is different from what we had in my generation or past generations. In other words, we're dangerously comfortable with different versions of the truth. We're accepting relativism. Sometimes even when some of these videos are debunked, people don't care because they would rather believe the narrative that feels more comfortable. And so we start with a value system, right? We have to reinforce the fact that there is a provable truth or fact that you can triangulate and that it's not all relative. And that is getting to a point where I'm feeling a little nervous that the blurry lines between us really appreciating something that couldn't be deemed as truth versus not is where we should start. Once we have that value system, then a lot of technologies can authenticate facts, truth. We can use AI as well to help with the process of proving, for example, the veracity of a video or image or text. So, just like with cybersecurity, we have a lot of solutions and antidotes for that. But the way we consume the truth is also very interesting. We are switching the platforms where we used to look for facts or truth. If you look at, for example, Gen Z, a lot of them, I think more than 70% will start with TikTok when it comes to searching certain types of topics versus the news or going to the library or talking to humans. And so understanding the path of facts, truth, and also misinformation is going to be really important for some of these politicians to really learn so that they can focus the interventions in the right channels.
I think from my perspective, I completely agree what Rebecca has said. If I can just add on a few things, I think one is, I think with any platforms, right, I think, I'll speak for TikTok at least, I think we have community guidelines to basically govern what is allowed or not allowed on our platform. So that would include things like preventing harm, encouraging freedom of speech, protecting child safety, and of course, upholding authenticity and integrity, which is today's main conversation around misinformation. I think when it comes to thinking about how do we partner with local authorities, I think a couple of ways. I think one is our community guidelines are, the way we implement them are quite global. We have about over a dozen of community guidelines over the world, given, of course, different geographies have different values and have different local behaviors. And I think, as well as I think when we do find things that are violative, and particularly when it comes to extremely violative that will cause harm, we actually do work closely with the local authorities. So, for example, if we're seeing people expressing self-harm, we'll make sure that they're connected to the local healthcare authorities if we're seeing violence. So to the extent that it makes sense, we actually work very closely with local authorities that's actually needed to provide in real world support as well.
Great, thank you very much, Michelle and Rebecca. We started late, so we have one last question for the three of you. If you can make a short reflection on what do you think, how do you imagine the conversation or the field of misinformation from here to 1 year. Let's try to make some futurism. I don't know if you have a dystopic view or an utopic view, but the one who wants to start, we can close the conversation with that comment of that.
I'm happy to start if that's all right.
Start.
So as a lawyer, I'll chime in on the legal perspective and where I think the laws are going to be. I think that AI laws are coming up everywhere. There are proposed or enacted AI laws in Latin America and all over the world. And a prominent one is the EU AI Act, and a lot of these laws are considering misinformation as a primary harm to prevent from happening. And so I think across the world, we're going to see an uptick in legislation that prevents misinformation, specifically related to elections and political campaigns, and making it and preventing politicians from using it, from weaponizing it, and protecting citizens against the harms that it can cause.
Great, thank you, Lyric. Rebecca?
I think I would love to encourage everybody to stop asking the question on whether the technology can create credible lies, because we have had ways in which humans throughout history have employed a lot of different tools to create that false reality, right? We always had misinformation and credible lies. So more than whether deepfakes or AI can create some of those or enable some of those, I think the question is the cost of creating those. That misinformation, and who has the power to leverage that for the causes that are not good for humanity. And so when we think about this space of misinformation, to me, we go back to value systems. We have to actually want the truth and appreciate the truth and push to find the truth. And that will prompt the generation of solutions, technology, and legislation that will make that happen. And as I said before, I think one of the bigger crises that we have right now is that my children have not grown up with a reality where there is one absolute truth. For them, everything is relative. And that concerns me more than the capabilities or the power of the technology. And so I would start with good values.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Michelle?
It's hard to follow good values. So agree with that. I'll bring it back to just more tangible and practical, especially from the perspective of technology platform, which is, we will see a proliferation of AI-generated content on these platforms. As people have already said, the cost of that is very low these days. So then the question is, one, how do we, make sure that it is clear what is AI, what is human-generated, and then two, then especially, for both, and especially with AI-generated content, how do we make sure that we can moderate it in an effective way and prevent misinformation from happening? So it does present a bigger challenge with all the AI-generated content when it comes to content moderation. But I'll leave with a silver lining on a positive note as well, which is, with the rise of AI, we are also leveraging that to more effectively do our moderation and being able to detect videos. Again, a lot of technologies have gone in to leverage AI to make our platform safer, and we'll continue to invest in that. So the challenge is grand, but I think if people put our minds together, it's something that we can all work on together. And one last thought is, I think especially when it comes to misinformation, I think it's not a one platform issue. It is really truly an industry issue. So we're also, the platforms are competing in many ways, but I think on this topic, we're also seeing a lot of companies all come together to combat misinformation together.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rebecca, Lyric, Michelle. We know that you have very busy agenda, so we apologize for the delay. It was a great conversation. I take note of a lot of things that you said. So thanks a lot very much, and a big applause for them. Thank you.
All right. Well, it was an amazing closing. Fedemare, are you there? Are you here? Okay. He's the one that won the raffle. He can, Fermare can go to the registration booth. 9 o'clock, we're going to be here on time with the second day of Santex Week. Tomorrow it's going to be about IT challenges. So see you tomorrow early in the morning here again in a new day of Santex Weeks. Thank you very much.
Gracias.